The people who have failed you the most are not strangers. They are those who once swore to always be there for you. Your friends, your family. Those people in whom you placed all your faith, all your heart, all your vulnerability. The blow did not come from the world. It came from within, and that precisely that is what hurts the most. Have you noticed that the more you expect from someone, the more they disappoint you, that the more you give, the less value it seems to have? And here comes the brutal truth no one wants to accept. It's not that they are cruel. It's that you expected too much. We live trapped in a fantasy. We were raised to believe that family bonds are sacred, that true friendship is eternal, that if you give love, you will receive love. But that is nothing more than an illusion. Schopenhauer said it without anesthesia. Human beings are selfish by nature, not because they are evil, but because their priority will always be their own well-being. And that, when you understand, it changes everything. Think about how many times you have been forgotten just when you needed someone the most. How many times you have broken into 1,000 pieces, holding someone up who would never hold you. How many times you confused utility with affection. Because that's what we do. We believe that as long as they stay, it's because they love us. But in reality, most people stay as long as you are useful to them. And when you stop being useful, they disappear without looking back. The problem is not with them. The problem is in what you expected. In that invisible contract you signed without them knowing. They will be there for me because I was there for them. Lieutenant, there are no guarantees in the human heart. There is no emotional justice, no guaranteed reciprocity. And yet, you remain attached to that illusion, waiting for messages that don't come, calls that never happen, words that will never be spoken. You hold on to the memories as if they were promises, but memories are just that, shadows of what was not, certainties of what will be. Schopenhauer had a devastating but accurate image, the dilemma of the hedgehogs. Two hedgehogs in winter seeking warmth. If they get too close, they hurt each other with their own spines. If they move too far apart, they die from the cold. Human relationships are like that. Getting close is painful, moving away is mortally lonely. So what's the solution? Finding the right distance, not the one of blind passion, not the one of complete detachment, the one of prudence, the one of lucidity. And that lucidity starts with one decision: reduce your expectations, not as an act of resignation, but as an act of power. Because the one who expects the least is least disappointed, and the one who is least disappointed lives freer. Emotional self-sufficiency is not coldness, it's protection. It's understanding that no one is obligated to save you, and because of that, you learn to save yourself. It's stopping the habit of handing over the steering wheel of your peace to others. It's accepting that you can love without depending care, without begging share, without losing yourself. Society sold us a dangerous myth that happiness is in others, that you need a tribe, a partner, a circle of family. But no one told you that those same people can be the source of your greatest anguish, that your bonds can also be chains. Has it never happened to you? Wanting to distance yourself from someone who hurts you, but you can't because it's your blood. Guilt TIs you, duty TIs you. The shared history TIs you. But blood is not reason enough to allow suffering. The real bond is not imposed. It's built, and if it's not built, it falls apart by itself. You need to start looking at relationships with different eyes, not as sacred sanctuaries, but as human exchanges, natural, temporary, fallible. Stop idealizing, stop expecting what you would give. Because most of the pain is born right there. in comparing what you do with what you receive. And no, it's not about becoming cynical, nor about stopping loving. It's about loving with intelligence, giving without mortgaging yourself, wanting without annihilating yourself. Because when you understand that human nature is not evil, but selfish, you begin to see the game clearly, and you can protect yourself. Think about all those times someone walked away without explanation. It hurt, yes. But what would you have done if you had known it was just a matter of time? If you hadn't expected anything, would it have hurt the same? Expectation is the knife that holds disappointment. Learn to observe, to read beyond the words. People don't always say what they think, but they always act according to their interests. And that's not something to hate. It's something to understand. Because in that understanding lies your freedom. Most of your emotional wounds don't come from abandonment, but from attachment, not from rejection. But from the fantasy you built around someone. We idealize, we create mental versions of people. And when they don't fit that version, we feel betrayed, but in reality, they were just who they always were, the ones you didn't want to see. Accepting this is painful because it means recognizing that the responsibility for our suffering is not only external, but internal, that no one broke us without our permission, that every disappointment was a lesson we refused to learn until it was too late. And yet, it's also liberating, because if the pain was born from expectation, then you can heal it by changing the way you expect, or better yet, by stopping expecting. True serenity comes when you understand that you owe nothing to anyone, and no one owes you anything. That affection is given by choice, not by obligation. That gratitude doesn't always come back, that you can give and not receive. And that's okay, because you gave from your truth, not from a transaction. Do you want peace? Stop asking for emotional retribution. Do it for you, and if the other responds, fine. And if not, also fine. Because what you do for others doesn't define you if you do it expecting a return. It defines you if you do it because it's who you are. Human selfishness is not an enemy to fight. It's a reality to integrate. People love from their lack. They give from their need. They move from their interest. And that doesn't make them monsters. It makes them human, just like you. Because you've also stopped calling when you no longer needed. You've also forgotten someone who once held you up. We are all villains in someone's story. And when you see that, when you really see it, you empty yourself of resentment. Because you understand that no one is here to fulfill your expectations. And you're not here to fulfill anyone else's. You don't have to be the perfect child, nor the ideal friend, nor the dream partner. Just you with yourself. That's the relationship you need to care for. Schopenhauer said life is suffering, and suffering comes from desire. When you stop desiring the other to love you the way you want, you begin to see love for what it is, a momentary miracle, not an eternal promise. Then change the focus. Don't look for someone to fill your emptiness. Fill it yourself. Don't look for someone to rescue you from pain. Learn to navigate it. Don't look for absolute loyalty. Look for coherence, and if a bond stops nourishing you, have the courage to let it go, even if it hurts, because the pain of the truth is always lighter than the weight of emotional lies. You may ask, what's left if I stop expecting from others? You remain finally you with your silences, your emptiness, your wounds, but also with your strength, your clarity, your peace. Because in emotional self-sufficiency, there is something no one can take from you. Control. Control of your reactions, of your decisions, of your peace. The world won't stop to heal you. No one will come to pick you up off the floor, but you can. Decide not to drag yourself through affections that don't hold up. Look around, look closely. How many of your current relationships exist only out of habit? How many only work while you push? How many would survive if you stopped yielding? The answer will hurt, but it will also wake you up. Don't idealize, don't dramatize. Don't beg, observe. Understand and act. Because freedom doesn't come when everyone loves you. It comes when you no longer need them to. And here comes the final twist, the real mystery of existence. When you stop needing others to value you, that's when they start valuing you the most. Because self-sufficiency is magnetic. Peace is attractive. The one who doesn't demand seduces. The one who doesn't chase awakens curiosity. The one who doesn't cling floats. And floating is the art of living without sinking into anyone. Accept that not everyone cares about you. Sometimes not even those you said would always be there. And still, you can be fine. You can be at peace because it was never their task to hold you up. It was always yours. And now you know it, so don't lament what you didn't receive. Be grateful for what you gave, because that belongs to you. And what you give from your truth, no one can take from you. Don't expect. Don't idealize, don't deceive yourself, observe. Understand and free yourself. Reality is harsh, but it's yours. And only when you accept it does true peace begin. And if you've already accepted that, no one is obligated to save you. Now you must face the next level. What will you do with that essential loneliness? Because yes, what comes after abandoning expectation is a void, an uncomfortable silence that many confuse with defeat. But it isn't, it's the beginning. The 0 point, where you stop being a satellite orbiting around others and become your own center of gravity. Here enters another brutal aspect that Schopenhauer touched on, but few dare to face directly. The pleasure of renunciation. We're not talking about resignation. We're talking about power. Learning to renounce false emotional needs that culture has instilled in you since childhood. You've been told that without constant connection, you're incomplete, that external validation is a sign of mental health. That being human means needing others. But who decided that? At what point did contact stop being a choice and become a need? This is where most people fail, because they confuse bond with dependency, affection with addiction, closeness with control, and they end up chaining themselves to relationships that are cages, decorated with flowers, people who smile while draining your energy. Bonds that make you smaller, but which you hold on to out of fear of silence. Have you felt that visceral fear of not receiving messages? Of no one asking how you are? Of absence becoming a habit? And yet that fear is exactly what's destroying you. True strength is born when you're able to embrace that absence as part of the process. When you realize that peace isn't in filling every social gap, but in leaving some emptiness without fear. Because not every space must be filled. Not every emotional lack needs a human patch. Some gaps are there to remind you that you haven't finished getting to know yourself. And until you learn to enjoy your own company, any relationship will be nothing more than a temporary anesthesia for your internal disconnection. Here comes an essential concept: emotional economy. No one teaches you this, but we all should manage it. Where do you invest your emotions? Who do you give your thoughts? To who do you dedicate your energy, your doubts, your time to? Because all of that is limited capital. And if you're spending it on people who give you nothing in return, you're not being generous. You're being irresponsible with yourself. Emotional self-sufficiency is at its core a form of intelligence. Not emotional, not rational, existential. It means understanding that you can feel lonely without being weak, that you can love without possessing, that you can accompany without being indispensable, and above all, that you can walk away without guilt. But now we need to talk about a silent poison, emotional debt, that feeling that because you were once loved, you're obligated to stay, to endure, to tolerate. Often, the past affection becomes a chain. They cared for me when I was down. They were there for me in hard times. And because of that, now you stay silent, yield, adapt. But affections should not become mortgages. What someone did for you, if it was genuine, doesn't require repayment. And if repayment is required, then it wasn't love, it was a contract. And you didn't come to sign contracts disguised as affection. We also need to talk about illusory reciprocity, that subtle self-deception, where you think you're receiving the same as you give, simply because you're too afraid to look coldly, because you're afraid to admit that this friendship is one-sided, that this partner only takes, that this family tolerates you more than loves you. But you keep justifying, glossing over, because admitting it would break you, without realizing that what really breaks you is staying. Do you want a deeper level? Here, it is authentic love is only possible from freedom. And I'm not talking about emotional libertinism, but about the real capacity to say, I don't need you to be here, but I'm glad you are. That's the difference between needing and choosing, between depending and sharing. Every bond born out of the fear of loneliness is doomed to rot. Every love that survives from lack is an emotional time bomb. Schopenhauer wasn't pessimistic. He was lucid. He knew that the tragedy of human life isn't that we're bad, but that we're designed to survive, not to care. That our nature doesn't seek the good of others, but our own benefit. And that doesn't have to be terrible if you understand it, because it stops surprising you. Stops hurting. It doesn't mean no one loves you. It means no one will love you more than themselves. And that's fair. Expecting the opposite is emotional arrogance. Then comes the moment to make a conscious decision. Stop being the savior of others. Because that role, no matter how noble it seems, is an anchor, an excuse not to work on yourself. You spend your life solving other people's dramas because it gives you a false sense of value, as if your existence only had meaning if someone needs you. But that cycle is as toxic as any addiction, because it makes you indispensable in the life of people who wouldn't do the same for you. And you know it, but you keep staying because it makes you feel special. Get out of there, free yourself. No one came to this world to carry the emotional life of others. If you can't handle yours, why do you insist on saving others? It's a distraction pattern, a neat way of avoiding the hardest work of all, sitting with yourself and asking what the hell you really want. And when you do, when you sit with yourself and silence the noise, a brutal truth appears: you've lived more for others than for yourself. You've been the model child, the loyal friend, the devoted partner. But when were you just you, without roles, without labels, without the need to be necessary? That's the challenge. Stop being useful to start being authentic. And here comes the most interesting part. When you manage it, when you align with your center and stop pursuing bonds out of fear, you start attracting different relationships, healthier, freer, real. Because you no longer demand, you no longer beg, you no longer tolerate the intolerable. And that inevitably filters people. Some will leave, others will hate you for ceasing to be functional. But the ones who stay, those are the ones who matter. Because they love you without needing you. They respect you without demanding. They love you without pretending to possess you. And you finally can breathe without guilt, without a mask, without debt. That's the final point of the journey. We started with this uncomfortable truth. No one owes you anything, but you also don't owe yourself. To betray yourself, to fit into an emotional system that doesn't represent you. Renouncing expectations isn't giving up. It's an act of rebellion against an emotional model that taught us to depend. And you're here for something bigger than that. You're here to live in your axis. And from there, whoever wants to join can. But you no longer revolve around anyone. Because now you know that true peace is not shared. It's built inside in silence and without asking for permission. And here comes an even more uncomfortable but powerful truth. Inner peace is not exciting. It has no fireworks, no dramatic declarations, no movie reconciliation scenes. It's silent, slow, almost boring, and that's why most people don't choose it. Because we've been conditioned to confuse intensity with love, chaos with passion, suffering with depth. We've become addicted to emotional disorder, to turbulent bonds that make us feel alive, even though they're bleeding us inside. But living is not about vertigo every day. Living, really, is learning to maintain calm without looking for a storm to justify it. And if you think about it, this explains a lot of things. It explains why you return to broken relationships, why you forgive the unforgivable, why you cling to those who hurt you, because you are taught that love hurts, that loving is sacrificing, that the one who matters most is the one who has the most power to destroy you. What if all of that is a lie? What if true connection shouldn't leave you exhausted? What if emotional health isn't seen as a drama scene, but as an afternoon without shocks, where you can breathe without fear? Many don't know what to do with stability because they've never had it. When someone doesn't manipulate you, you doubt their interest if there's no jealousy. It seems cold if there are no arguments. You suspect indifference. That's collective trauma. An emotional distortion that makes us look for problems when everything is going well, simply because emotional silence seems suspicious. But that silence, that absence of drama, that peace that scares, is the real emotional home we were never taught to build. Here enters another angle that few want to look at. Expectations not only break relationships with others, but they also sabotage the relationship you have with yourself. How many times have you been disappointed by not living up to a mental image that doesn't even belong to you? You compare yourself. You judge yourself. You punish yourself for not being enough, as if there were a clear standard, as if someone were watching, as if not being admired were a crime. But no one is pointing at your flaws. Only you, and in that battle against an invisible ideal, you lose energy that you could use to truly get to know yourself. Now we need to talk about the silent applause you expect every time you do something well. You don't say it, but you feel it. Part of you wants someone to notice, someone to tell you you did well. I'm proud of you, you're worth it. And when that recognition doesn't come, doubt invades you. Was it really enough? And there again, you return to the error, seeking outside what you should have built inside. External approval is a drug, and like any drug, it numbs you for a moment. But then you need more and more until you become a slave to others. Gaze to likes, to compliments, to the words that validate you and at the same time weaken you. Because the truth is this: every time you need someone to tell you, you're surrendering power. You're saying, I don't know if I'm worth it. Tell me you do, and that leaves you exposed. It makes you dependent. It makes you fragile. That's why Schopenhauer insisted on the solitary path of the wise, not out of contempt for others, but out of respect for oneself. Because while your well-being depends on what others think, you'll always be at war, always. Even if you smile, even if you pretend to be in control. Emotional maturity doesn't come when you learn to relate to others. It comes when you learn to be okay without anyone, not as punishment, but as a choice. because you understand that you are your center. And from there, you can build anything. But if your center is outside in the hands of others, any wind will sweep them away, and your foundation goes with them.